Hey, Jeremy Lee here, voice of Makoto in Persona 5, and I am so excited that you found your way here to the Raw Dogs podcast because as a fellow cheesehead and a lover of all things Wisconsin, how can you not want to hang out with these guys who are spreading their love of gaming and making the world a brighter, more positive, definitely more fun place. So check it out, hang out for a while, and enjoy the Raw Dogs podcast.
Name it Squall.
If you could name your friend's kid any character from Final Fantasy, what would you name your friend's kid?
Oh yeah, it's a girl from Final Fantasy, huh?
Ooh, this is actually a good
Like
question.
the name Selfie hasn't aged well.
No,
that's not good. That's not good at all.
Because I just grab a stick and yell Selfie stick and hit her with it.
I'm still going Vivi.
Vivi's a really good name.
It's not
cute.
a bad name.
I would
no.
want to torture people.
No, but for this little girl though, what do we got?
Palam?
Shiva?
Param?
Let's go with the classic. Let's go with Poo Poo.
Yeah.
Poo-poo's
I don't think
pretty good.
I don't think they're gonna
Beatrix?
do that.
Beatrix is a cool name, but it's too close to people think you're like into Harry Potter.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, this is Raw Dogs. This is part 2 of our Final Fantasy VIII discussion. My name is Brad, Loaf of White Brad. I am known as the guy who beat FF8 for the first time recently on the Xbox One, the remastered.
Welcome, Brad.
FF8.
Which is kind of sacrilegious.
Xbox Series X. I get my Xboxes confused. But I beat it for the first time, and I mostly thought it was great. If you're here, you probably listened to part 1 already. So welcome back. And my thoughts haven't changed in the last 5 minutes.
How dare you?
Dylan, do you like this game more or less than 5 minutes ago?
I mean, I'm always going to love this game. There's not a lot of hate to give. If anything, I just have to stand my ground, baby.
Show your griever, you know?
Honestly, the more we're talking about it, and actually the more people I have on my side, this is not like the Final Fantasy discussion we had where it was you and I as well as Tom and
Jack.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. It's nice to have people here who at least kind of like
People that have opinions. Like Tom doesn't have an opinion really on 8 because he never really played it.
No.
He doesn't like
Other
it
than
after 5
insults
seconds.
or
Yeah.
whatever.
But yes, welcome back, Dylan. Good to see you.
Oh, perfect. To my right, I have.
This is Nick coming to you. I might be the coldest one to this game. I like some of the systems, but I can't say that it was like my all-star Final Fantasy game. I know that's an unpopular opinion at this
No, that is
table, but
no. It's that's fine. Like there's so many of them anyway. It's like how do you choose between all?
I
your
like
favorite
Chocobo's
children?
Dungeon and Dissidia 2.
You like
Dissidia 2 is
NT.
amazing.
I bought Dissidia at a thrift store, and I was like, okay, $5. This was worth $5.
That's a bad Dissidia though. There are good Dissidias.
No, I got the newest, the PS4 one, the newest one.
That's based off an arcade port. That's not representative of what Dissidia is.
They
because
also
the
gave
other ones are
Bart's a
very good.
voice.
You mean Butts?
but
I mispronounced that. I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
I know that's like a cultural thing.
I know, but I'm always going to call him Butts.
Yeah, well, I didn't realize that was the correct pronunciation from his land of.
Don't insult my culture.
and speaking to the lack of butts, how have you been?
I've been good. Life's been weird and chaotic and interesting, but I'm happy to be back and talking about video games. I've gotten a little bit more screen time, which has been fantastic. So
I'm sure Squall would say it's been chaotic and interesting lately for him too.
I feel like he's got a sharp, cold, piercing thing in his torso region.
Yeah.
What? Yeah, I guess. Okay.
Never go to parades. I've always said never go to parades, everybody.
At least don't storm the parade float.
And joining us again for part 2, we have the wonderful.
Ben Titus. I am mostly a musician, but when I have the spare time, I freaking love these games. And this was my first Final Fantasy game, so I've got a lot of really strong opinions on it, despite the fact that I've got some major holes in my gaming history.
We talked in the last episode about how most of the systems work and much of the story around the development and what's going on at the core of the game. But we didn't really discuss the story that heavily, and this episode will function as a lore exploration, a lore dump, a lore bukkake, as they say. And I'm going to make you guys listen to the...
That's a whole new definition of 1,000 needles right there.
That's the book I'm going to write, Joseph Campbell style.
Dylan's autobiography, 1,000 Needles of Lore Bukkake.
The hero with 1,000 dumps on his face.
The hero with 1,000 needles. The hero with 1,000 needles.
That's just Pinhead.
What?
That's Pinhead.
Yeah.
That is a lot of back alley activity. Let's just put it that way.
Ooh, yeah.
Okay. Long ago, there was Hein, the divine figure or extraterrestrial entity that
This
created...
is not canon.
This is canon.
This is someone talking about it.
No, this
I'll
is
say
canon. This is canon that is in the game, that is explained in the background through dialogue, or in the there's documents unlocked from
I don't remember
hearing
any
dialogue.
of this.
No,
I read this in your outline, and I was like, I don't remember any.
this is explained.
I think this
briefly.
is their religion.
No, this is explained briefly in the dialogue, and then also in the Ultimania. This is what is described. Now, this is
I'm the Ultimania.
well,
Praise be Umatu.
but this is the creation myth. So this doesn't have to be 100%. This is what they understand. Okay.
Sure.
This divine figure or entity created the world, uses their magical powers to defeat hordes of monsters and shape the environment. They grew tired of these activities and created humans to handle these tasks,
Lazy.
and then went off to rest. Humans did what humans do, and they fucked everything up.
Yep.
When Hein woke up, he was displeased that humans had grossly multiplied and overstepped their mandate. Furious, he started setting children on fire. Humans fought back and made Hein bend the knee.
Isn't that just global warming at this point?
Yeah,
Ooh,
I mean,
interesting.
burning the children, you know? I mean, that's
Global
not our
warming
problem.
and wildfires.
Let the kids worry about it, you know? Well, I was sleeping. What the fuck?
I'm just a member of the U.S. Senate. I don't care. I'll be dead in 2 years.
Make Galbadia, make Galbadia great again?
No. This is taking a very hard turn.
Got dark real quick.
We do like this stuff here. We do like this stuff.
It's got to stay.
For a lasting truce, Hein promised humans half of his body and all of the corresponding magical powers within it. Peace was short-lived, however, as humans began fighting each other to possess the half body.
Which half body?
The cock.
The half body.
Are we going like centaur, or are we going like straight up and down? Like, how are we managing?
Oh no! You're getting
Split hot dog or
everything.
hamburger.
I imagine humans have the bottom half of the hamburger.
Yum, yum.
But war lasted several decades before the Dark King Zabalga emerged victorious. He hastened a ritual that would make him Hein's equal, not Heinz, the ketchup, but Hein's equal. He was surprised, however, to find out the body contained no magical powers. Vascaroon, a wise man, revealed that the half body was corrupt and possessed no real power. Hein lied and kept all of his magical powers in the top half of the hamburger. He tricked him and gave him the bad half of the hamburger.
That is erectile dysfunction in its just most pure state.
The dick didn't work anyways. You can have it.
Moving on.
Zabalga was furious when the wiener didn't work, and he sought to kill Hein, but he couldn't find Hein. Now,
I'm imagining a dick split in half all the way down, hot dog wise.
hot dog split.
So yeah, like a hot dog you put in a frying pan, and they just both halves just curl.
And it splitsies, gets blisters, you know.
People said that Hein must have concealed the magic half of his hamburger wiener in the bodies of women. Okay.
Wait, what?
I added the hamburger wiener part, but no.
You should delete this part of the podcast.
No.
here.
Okay.
This is what the people want.
No, people said that Hein must have concealed the magic half of his body in the bodies of women.
Right.
Hence, only women were able to be the successors. That's why
Sorceress.
only sorceresses can exist. There are no
so
men
that's a tie into the whole Christ thing with the extra rib and all that stuff.
Well,
Okay, got it.
It's
Yeah.
explicit. It's explicit that magic is not inherent to anyone in this world. You can adopt it, but you can't own it.
And magic was only usable by anyone outside of a sorceress fairly recently. It wasn't until Dr. Odin that all of magic was unlocked for everybody.
Yep.
Otherwise,
And
it was.
He speaks in a German accent. I love it.
Okay, we'll get to him.
Yeah, we're basically going into like Da Vinci Code there, but
So sorceresses are the only ones that can use magic for now. Only one can exist per generation. They're like Sith Lords or something with weird rules, but only their mastery of magic distinguishes them from a regular human. They are not immortal. They can grow old.
they do wear skin tight outfits.
Some of them do.
They look kind of hot, too.
We did.
Yeah.
Well, they range. They range in how they appear.
If you have magic.
Medea is a MILF. I mean, if
I'm just saying,
honest.
if you have magic, you're going to use magic to keep yourself attractive forever.
It's hard to call them a
yeah.
MILF, though, because we're like their age now, and it's really weird.
I don't think that we're the same age as Adia.
I'm about to say Adia
or
is
Ultimate
older
Sh-
because she took care of all the orphans. So
Oh, she's like in her 40s, I guess, yeah.
I mean,
I'm gonna guess.
Cougar man, right there, done.
Yeah, there you go.
Meow.
Their powers are
That's a different Pornhub search.
Their powers are transferred to the next sorceress so that they can die. If you still have the powers, you can't die. A sorceress is generally going to be paired with a knight who is their main link with humanity. So then we get to the Sentra civilization, not the Cetra, which is kind of funny that they just like add an N, copy paste, whatever.
It's very confusing.
The Sentra civilization flourished 4,000 years ago. Their great technology enabled them to expand their empire across the world's oceans. Only a few remnants remain today, being the Gardens. They established the Holy Dalit Empire on the western continent and the nation of Esther on the eastern continent. Now, the Dalit Empire was home to a significant portion of the world's population, became the most powerful nation in the world, and Esther devoted themselves to technological advancement. That is pretty much the Emerald City
And
we
then
see
they-
later in the game.
Right, and they also devoted themselves to being isolationists.
You know, this is kind of pissing me off because as I'm reading this out, it is FF7. Death from the
Yep.
skies. A calamity came from the skies and struck a continent with a bunch of monsters on it. Fuck you.
Arguably, they did a better job of explaining it, though.
It's a little more interesting. A cataclysm, they call it, that hits the southern continent, annihilating the Centra and its population. This is a cyclical phenomenon called the lunar cry. Monsters who inhabit the moon. Some people think the moon's made out of cheese. Turns out it's just made out of monsters. Eventually,
Arr.
the moon becomes oversaturated and ejaculates hordes of these monsters to the earth.
If we're honest, the animation does look rather phallic.
Oh, yeah. I mean,
It's ridiculous.
it's the moon fucking the earth there.
Yeah,
Talk about affecting the tides.
with
am I
no
right?
lube, with no lube at all.
Yeah. It affects the cycle. The Dalit Empire
That's what.
is splintered into four nations. I want to say Gobadia,
Galbadia.
Galbadia, yeah.
Gobadia, Timber, Balam, and the Dalit Dukedom. Now, up next is the Sorceress War. Now, 18 years ago, the President for Life, Vinzer Delling, attempted to unify the western continent of Galbadia under the banner of a military dictatorship.
Dick.
That is when someone sets fire to the rain.
Oh, God.
Adele shows up, and and Adele is known for loving hamburgers, singing a lot, and being a sorceress. Yeah. She is referred to as a hermaphrodite in the French version, and
I thought for sure it was a dude.
definitely
first time I saw him.
has a very masculine build.
Them.
Her is the correct pronoun in this game, anyways.
Okay.
At least in the American version, but I do like Adele's design a lot. I do too. Very striking.
Yeah.
But Adele is a tyrant and a hot pop star from Britain. Uses her magic to perpetuate her reign and made Esther her plaything. So essentially, Esther and Gobadia are at war. Gobadia seeks to rule the Western continent, and then the Sorceress War begins. Adele uses her technology and #1 hit song to destroy the environment. Adele learns of the crystal pillar which crashed to Earth during the lunar cry. She wants it dug up and studied, and that's when I call him Dr. Strangelove. Dr. Odin is a fucking ding-dong of an immense magnitude. Without him, none of the problems of the universe would exist. Like the fact that Ultimacia is able to time travel back in time at all is because of Odin's experimenting on Eleni. But he is tasked with constructing a gigantic metal structure around the pillar and calling it Lunatic Pandora. So
It's a very giant phallic object.
giant phallic object, much like something Strangelove would do. And there is a Kubrick fascination in this Final Fantasy game in particular.
Yeah.
All of the space sequence is Space Odyssey to a T. They were gratuitous with how much they were doing it. I was blown away, but
That
Odin,
part you liked.
except that their song that they tried to use to simulate the Blue Danube was terrible. That was a bad imitation. But I appreciated the imitation.
Right.
Dr. Odin also develops a new type of combat known as guardian forces. These entities were spirits that could reside in both objects and living creatures. He found a way to junction these forces to humans.
How is that not more fascinating that when in these games they bring up these like primordial spirits and they actually make them plot heavy? I know in the other ones that it's like even with like Garnet, she summons these things and they're important, but they're not that plot heavy. Like they're not integral.
I mean,
to the
isn't
plot.
in 9?
No, but I actually don't think that. I mean, the fact that they're going out of their way to explain them, like these are like spirits that can take the form of data.
This one did a good job.
Yes.
10, I think, also does a fantastic
Yes.
job.
I see a lot of parallels.
Dreams of the faith, being aeons you can summon. That's beautiful. But
It's simulation theory in a nutshell.
I wish there was even more to like people would worship at the shrine of Odin, like a certain guardian force that had powers, which I guess perhaps they do because he does have something that was built like a shrine.
I think actually this is a commentary on the guardian forces, especially are a commentary on the loss of religion in a modern society.
Oh, it introduces those like pagan elements and the fact that like the more powerful the god, the more followers they had.
Well,
like,
it's the more technology you have, the less you're associated specifically with spirits or anything.
That was a whole argument in Final Fantasy X.
Right,
Like,
yeah.
Either you're with the
Al-Bhed,
aeons
yeah.
and you're completely faith based, or all bad, completely technology based. And then that whole game was just like balancing the two.
I like that there's almost sort of a Lovecraftian nature to the guardian forces too, where the more you use them and you're familiar with them, you're paying a toll. Like you're just forgetting shit. Like your brains quits working to an extent.
Yep.
You're sacrificing part of who you are for power, which is a slippery slope, which they don't talk about that much. It's just like kind of a throwaway line in your tutorial at school, which you don't want the students questioning it because you want your soldiers to have the abilities. But
how cool would it have been to introduce that element?
Yeah.
That might have been too much for, I believe, what they thought were audiences at the time.
Well, and especially at the time,
They
not
wouldn't have
even
been
just
able-
their target audience.
Because a lot of these game developers, especially in the 90s, they were focused on entertainment. So they were trying
siren
to push
boobies,
that.
siren boobies,
Well,
siren boobies.
I mean,
Exactly.
I mean, they're covered with feathers, guys. You don't even see the nipples.
I
don't
watched
worry.
the trailer for this, and it sounded like a terrible '80s movie trailer.
Yeah.
Like it,
they have
it is
the
awful.
guy. They have the guy.
Yeah, they got the voice guy.
Coming this fall, the most anticipated action-adventure epic of the year. A story of one man's struggle to save mankind from extermination. And his quest to capture the heart of the woman he loves. If he is to succeed, he will need intelligence, strength, courage. You, on the other hand, will need a PlayStation and lots of free time.
I prefer the Coca-Cola Final Fantasy IX ad.
Well, dude, really? You guys need to watch the Resident Evil 8 Village puppet ad in Japan.
It's fucking awesome.
At this point, just the fact that video games were being commercials during the Super Bowl is mind-boggling. Like, this is new, and this is
crazy.
Great. Yeah, but Dr. Odin, this guy is responsible for a lot of the trials and tribulations that happen to every character integral to the game. And even like Laguna winds up having to deal with him a lot. It's surprising that no one wants to kill him because it's even established Ultimacia can't come back in time without a machine that he invents based on Eleni. Kill him.
So no,
Kill
hold
him.
on. No, hold on. When you talk about time travel, it also brings up a lot of like moral quandaries, right? You don't kill baby Hitler. You just make sure Hitler had a better life. This is not killing someone is not the immediate solution to all of these problems.
Maybe on the first try.
But he is also kind of a almost This is his parallel is Project Paperclip, which brought in a bunch of Nazi scientists to basically help us with our space program.
He speaks with a German accent.
I think it's a pretty one-to-one.
Well, and it's a one-to-one, I think, Strangelove almost characterization,
Yeah.
which he's like that kooky, like weird scientist who has an accent, who is causing all of the big things. He's the reason you go to space in this game. He is Dr. Strangelove.
When you're that much of a genius, you can even start thinking of Einstein. You can think of
Dude, he never spills any food on himself. His collar goes like a foot around his neck all the way around.
gorgeous.
And I'm like, man, that's like so cool.
It's called being smart.
Suffice it to say, there was a sorceress war going on. Sorceress war going on. Dr. Odin created a lot of technology.
Just immediately.
We are going to purposefully not talk about what happens next with the sorceress war because we'll get to that talking through the story of the game. Ben, what were your thoughts the first time you saw that opening sequence?
I mean, as a kid that admittedly was not the most popular and perhaps bullied by some people, a lot like Cypher, I was just like, dude, that dude's me, except he's got a really cool sword. Like, I love that dude. The whole idea is like, I saw that dude and I saw Cypher and I'm just like, holy hell, that's where I'm at as a 14, 15-year-old at the time.
This does something that doesn't happen in every game. Like, 7 is an easy comparison. 7, you see Aerith, you see some of the live stream, huge pull into a train sequence, and you're right in the battle. This gives you flashes of the entire story of the game, characters you're going to see. I mean, it's nice that you can just pull from any part for like cool imagery, which is really
The
great.
intro is jarring, though. It's to throw your audience off
Yes.
and get them ready to throw away any preconceptions. Yeah.
And it's one of the best songs I think that Uematsu actually has ever made.
Liberale Fatale roughly translates to fated children. And the lines, Phthos, Lusek, Vekos, Vinosek, it translates to, it's an anagram of the phrases succession of witches and the word love all mixed together.
Oh.
Yes. So it's a tale of the
So
succession
they
of
stole
witches
a
and a
little
love
bit from
story.
Berlioz there.
And it doesn't just say filthy, sweaty dudes as much as we want
Can
it
you
to.
suck on my balls?
My only critique for the opening sequence is when the game starts, I didn't realize the first time that it was something that happened. I thought it was just like a hype reel. I didn't know it was the story of
That
what
was like a preview.
I thought it was just like, oh, this is the game. Get ready, because the fact that it
Here
jumps
we go.
around and shows everything confused me.
And when you stop to consider what that fight means in the greater context of everything, because it's more ideological, I think that it would make sense that you see a lot of these flashes pretty much right away. Because even as they're fighting, as the gunblades clash, you see like the visions of the future, but there's like this like guttural kind of like sound, like it's pulling you in. I don't know, man. There's something just. First of all, this is your first time like really getting into it. Did it actually absorb you?
The opening sequence?
Yeah.
It's well done. It is fun. I don't like the aspects where it just shows bits of everything. It detracts from the actual battle, setting up the story. I would prefer to just be Squall and Cypher, but for what it is, it's beautiful. You wake up in a hospital. You have a scar. You have to take your final exam. You meet your hot teacher, Quistis, who does have the hots for you.
Who's only a year older than you.
Which, yeah, I'm like, is it hot for teacher if she's just the
No.
grade above you?
No, it's not. It's
just like-
it's instructor.
It's weird. Yeah, it's weird.
And then you
It's senpai. I believe it
It
translates
actually
to
is
senpai.
senpai.
and then you get to meet who's going to be. You go fight Ifrit and you take your exam, whatever. But then you have a mission. You have to go stop. what do you have to go here? Do you have to?
Well, you have your mission, and then you have to go to a dance for your commencement ceremony, basically.
First, no, you have to go to
I thought there were
Dalit.
like 2 or...
No, you got to go to Dalit.
Yeah, you've got to do the mission, yeah.
Because some Galbadian troops are occupying Dalit, and you're being sent there for
As
your
cannon fodder, basically.
This is like your exam.
This is your final exam.
Yeah.
Go to a city under enemy territory as a 17-year-old.
By the way, you're in charge.
And also, that guy you just got scars from and had a huge fight, he's in charge. And then
Yeah.
this guy with face tattoos.
Who's
I
annoying
like
as
Zell.
fuck.
Oh,
The
come on,
entire
I love-
game.
Oh, come on. I like Zell.
Zell's
He grew on me.
Zell's
I'll give you
okay.
that.
His design is horseshit, in my opinion.
He's your excitable best friend. That's like such a common
Yeah.
like JRPG trope. It's
Also, if you watch enough anime, like these characters kind of roll off your back in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
I think you know where I'm coming
Yeah.
from.
At where I grew up, I had 4 TV stations. Anime was not on any of those. So that wasn't something I even got kind of exposed to until about 10 years ago. But then by the end of the game, I'm like, all right, he's cool.
He is no Ryuji, but
annoying.
he is cool.
He's cool, though.
He's basically Ryuji.
he is
If he had a charming voice actor, it might have helped.
Yeah.
and if he got to say fuck.
But you are a 17-year-old child soldier kid. You and Zell and Cypher are sent on a final exam to go kick some foreign military forces out of Dalit. Turns out that they are trying to take over a broadcast tower, which has been down for a while because all of the broadcast equipment in the planet has been turned off because it would interfere with Adele's captivity, we find out later. But they want to turn the broadcasts back on, the Galbadian forces, to transmit a signal. Now, if they didn't do this, signals are still being able to be transmitted. I looked into this. They're built underground, but you couldn't transmit to the entire planet. So that's the reason they need to do this. They could send one signal to the whole planet.
How is this not already, first of all, cooler than 7? I'm sorry. Like, I do have to tell you, like,
Dude, protecting the planet, blowing up some reactors from some shitty corporation that
That are
is
drawing the lifeblood of the planet out
I'm
of
so,
the.
I'm so sorry. There's something so much more interesting about how everything kind of like
It's
steps up
mining
and
versus
then pulls back.
existential. Or maybe I don't know if I'm putting it right, but it's
I
like
think you're right.
It's like, okay, we're mining the core of the planet. We're gonna fuck it up. Versus like, oh, if we do this, we're gonna piss off something that we managed to actually subdue. But if that thing wakes up, we're fucked.
I respect that you guys are clever and can understand the nuance of this story. Unfortunately, most people aren't.
No.
Which is why we need some
Well,
nail on the head stories
yeah, I
to
guess so.
explain to people why.
a lot of this too. I don't think I would have just understood
It's true though.
what they were going
That's-
for. My first playthrough, I'm like, oh, they turn on a tower and then this happens. It's knowing, because I made my history outline. I made my timeline before I played through the game because I had that one book which just kind of laid out the story. So knowing why everything was happening while I was playing really helped me appreciate what was happening.
Yeah.
But I guess that just, the more you understand the game, the more you're going to like it. You also meet Selphie on this mission. You come back to Balam and pass your exams, and Cypher fails. Quistis gets demoted because she gave Cypher the job to like be the leader.
Which was a weird choice to begin with, but
And then Selphie randomly becomes in charge of like the party committee.
And she wants to throw a party. And she wants people to have a party, and that's her character.
she's
She
a
has
cute
and she wears
cheery
yellow.
trope.
She wears yellow. That's another character part of her.
But she also has some depth. Come on.
She's also defined by just the heart of her character. I'll admit.
When you do a scan, you can rotate character models. Hers is the only one you can't rotate because you could see up her skirt.
Oh, I did not
Fun
know that.
fact.
I do like her character a lot because it does provide that kind of really light comic relief that none of the other characters can really pull off.
I have a feeling a lot of subtlety was lost, and I do think that her being kind of like ditzy and straightforward is its own trope.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that's missing in this because they were trying to like not make her that. Like literally her first scene is her falling off a cliff and going like, "Oh, doy, I fell." It's like
Clumsy is an attractive character trait, though.
it is though.
But I I hate her hair. I think her hair looks stupid.
Easy now.
I think
Easy
it would be
now.
incredible
Yeah, but
to
Waka.
hear.
No, you're not selfie hair yet. Plus, you're not carrying a shinobu in Europe. Or
I
a
do
ninjaku.
really want to hear the actual like English, Japanese to English conversion.
A lot of
that
that
would
becomes
happen
culture.
now,
But
because it would be two teams working together to make sure that all of those like nuances and turn of phrases and things were actually correctly.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if a lot of subtlety was lost.
Too often with JRPGs.
So after you pass your final exam, you have a giant ball. And Squall
Waltz
meets
for the moon.
someone who's going to be very important to him.
He's like, fuck it, I'll dance with her, maybe.
She comes on hard to him.
Yeah, she does.
Yes.
She says, "You're the most handsome guy here."
She'd be thirsty.
She was the one that, as the 14-year-old me who identified with Squall, was like, I need to find one of those.
I really like raven-haired women.
My fiance does not have black hair, but
Dietto.
she has dark hair and she's relatively forward, and I appreciate that.
When I was
go.
17, talking to me was a really good character trait for women.
Yes,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
acknowledging that I'm breathing.
Asking me to dance?
Wait,
Whoa.
Yeah.
Yeah, just touch my shoulder. Go for it, please. Even as a friend.
You're the most handsome guy here.
Wait,
Literally only my mom has ever told me that.
It's like at
Mom's
that
like,
point,
"You're attractive." I'm like, "I fucking look like half of you." It's you have to. Say
I look like the
that.
bottom half of your I look like the bottom half of
you're
your
calling
hamburger.
half of you ugly otherwise.
yeah, someone asks you to dance. I need to go to the restroom for a minute. I'll be back in a minute.
Yeah. But you meet Renoa, and it's odd that you don't realize Renoa was dating Cypher if you guys are in school together. When does Cypher have enough time to run off to have a girlfriend?
She's only there on kind of like a diplomatic kind of like visiting.
She's only there to talk to Sid about getting help with kidnapping the president of
Which
Delling.
weirdly,
Delling.
like, do they ever explain her age? Because obviously she must be.
She's
like
1
a
year.
older,
She's 16.
but wasn't Squall 17? So
Yeah.
shouldn't she be a year older?
No,
in
Renoa's
order to not
16
be
or
in school,
17.
or-
Oh, no.
She's a JRPG. You can have a 4-year-old.
Okay,
She-
logic. I know, logic. Whatever.
not
The age of consent is
Uh-oh.
pretty different.
We have a cat
And-
friend. Yeah.
orphanages are largely where they come from.
In
And
fact,
also,
in fact, a lot of when you do some like side content and you just talk to people in villages, the ones that aren't really associated with any specific garden, you do end up finding that a lot of people are like, "Nah." Some like old people, they're like, "It's a shame they're making you all fight. That's
Yeah.
fucking weird."
because
Yeah.
it is weird.
It is fucking weird.
And these are people that are like middle school and high schoolers that are being forced to perform military operations. It's kind of gross, but Renoa is the daughter of a famous general of Delling City, so she doesn't have to do that.
He's the like numero uno, right?
He's not the
Yeah.
president. The president of Delling is the one.
of the like military.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like the lead cat.
I mean, if your name is General Fury Caraway, yeah, you're probably in charge a little bit.
I mean, yeah.
Angry
Yeah.
Big Dick, they was the first name, but they're like, we can't use that.
Let's just downgrade
That
this
was literally
slightly.
the first name that came up.
So yes, you pass your exam. You have to go kidnap a president. That's your next mission. I'm like, is there no one else? Is there a 22-year-old that might have more experience? Maybe a 30-year-old military operative.
I guess
No.
all those guys just got killed.
It's like, but he has a gun blade. Who else are we gonna say?
Okay, I can actually explain this part. I actually do think that Sid. Well, I mean, obviously, like Adea, they chose these children specifically, and this is almost them creating their own Deus Ex Machina. They're like, well, clearly these are the ones who have to do it.
It has to be Squall.
It has to be Squall, and it has to be these other children too, because their bond is so tight they don't even know it.
And spoiler warning, major spoiler warning.
We're good.
Squall, at the end of the game, time travels back to Adia with the dying final boss and says, we need to create Balam Garden. This is a dying sorceress. Take her power. And so he's the one who tasks her with starting the gardens up. And so, yes, that's a really good point, Dylan. Sid and Adia must know, like, well, Squall has to be the one. So that's that's a good point. Because why else would a 17-year-old be like, well, you're in charge now? It's like, well, I don't know. Maybe someone else, but
Why else would they task him? Why would
Like,
Sid
you're
be
a commander now.
Well, Sid is so preoccupied with Squall, and you can tell throughout the entire thing. He's like, "Hey, how you doing, my boy? Like, hope you do well on this exam." And the fact that you're the main character is almost
distraction.
He has put
maybe?
all of his chips on Squall.
But I think it's just a happenstance. They're like, all right, Zell and Sophie should go too.
I think
It's
that
a
Sid,
full support system.
well, yeah, I think that Sid as a father figure is just like
Mrs.
if there's
Doubtfire,
gonna-
Robin Williams.
Actually, genuinely one of my favorite versions of Sid. Like,
It's my favorite Sid.
Yeah.
Besides Nine's Sid, the adultering cricket man.
yeah.
I like Cindy.
Yeah.
Well, there is an actually.
Indeed.
So you're tasked with kidnapping a president, and Renoa explains this, and this operation makes zero fucking sense.
It makes zero fucking sense.
This is not
Let's
how
go
trains.
hijack a goddamn train.
Well, this is not how trains work. I've seen
No.
train hijacking sequences. I get it. They're just
You
like,
ride up
we
on a
just
horse.
disconnect it, and then the back train just goes behind, and then another train
know.
goes in
But
between.
then there's like codes and like radar and sensors and the whole thing.
I like the espionage feel of this mission.
Yes.
I love
think
I love a
that
train
feels
heist.
pretty cool. It makes you feel cool as you're doing it. And then there's like the sequences where the windows are opening and the guards are kind of walking
Yeah.
past. I find that very compelling. A weird stealth element in Final Fantasy. Is this the first time a stealth element occurs in a Final Fantasy?
Final Fantasy VII has some.
You have to sneak around Shinra Tower.
Yeah, they do have lines of sight. You're right.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
But the president is a zombie monster, it turns out,
Yeah.
after the whole thing.
Yeah.
Oh, and then you just throw a phoenix down on him.
And he's dead.
Exactly. So like, oh wait, what? Okay, we'll just cast a holy on him, or oh no, I guess you don't have
No
holy
holy
at that point. Yeah, cast a couple of Phoenix Downs, done.
The president, though the real one, is broadcasting a signal to the world. The group decides to hijack the studio and send their own transmission. This is, I think, a point where Cypher's story might get lost to some people. Why is Cypher there? He was so upset that they sent 3 17-year-olds to kidnap a president. He's like, this is bullshit, and they're in danger. This is not a legit mission. Something's wrong here. He jeopardizes everything he's like studied and been a part of because he thinks that he's going to save them and stop something from happening that's bad. And Quistis goes with him because like someone has to follow this guy.
Yeah.
And Cypher's doing something I think pretty cool here before he gets enticed by Adea. Cypher is an interesting comparison to Squall. He is someone also, I mean, he's looking for meaning. He idolizes Laguna. That's the reason he uses a gunblade because he saw him
He's
in
the
that movie.
impulsive Squall.
He's the shadow.
No, here's how you have to put him, because if you're really gonna see this world as kind of a real world analogy, he is what we would end up calling a religious extremist.
Sure.
He is the person who is like literally trying to project something he clearly is not, because all of his false bravado and stuff is based on the fact that he's like
Desperately searching for meaning.
everyone else in the world is trying to tell him what fate is supposed to be, and he's fighting against it, which on its own is a very admirable trait. But I don't think for him specifically, he's actually understanding what's going on.
He doesn't apply his motivation.
He's not actually thinking about it. He's feeling emotionally compelled to it.
And he had an idea of what he was doing. Adia shows up in that dress, and he's like, yeah.
He gets hypnotized. He got glamored.
And made a lead in nice dress.
While this is being broadcast to everybody, Zell shows up and says, Balam Garden, we're here. And it's like, you probably shouldn't have said that, but so they're trapped behind enemy territory.
One of his douchier moments.
Yeah, he's still a good boy. He's a good
They
boy.
also just sent 17.
He's a puppy.
There's a practice though when you're behind enemy lines, in enemy territory. You go to the nearest garden, and the nearest garden is Galbadia Garden. Even though you're there, like Galbadia is the enemy, the gardens are kind of politically free. This is where you run into Irvine, who is the sniper, and you're told, all right, your new mission is to assassinate the sorceress. And Irvine's going to be your sniper. Before this all starts, the security guard in front of the mansion you're supposed to go to is like, wait a second, did you get the code word from the Tomb of the Unknown King? Sorry. It's like, okay, whatever. I like the Tomb of the Unknown King, but that is some bullshit.
I like that dungeon a lot.
It's a great, dude, you know what's weird about that dungeon is it goes to first.
tell me about it.
It goes to first person, kind of.
Sort of.
It's like exploring a Doom map. Yeah. Because...
No, it's like a Heroes of Mights and Magic.
I was gonna say it goes back to like old school RPGs
Real dungeon
where you
crawlers.
where you go forward, turn left, forward, turn right, forward.
And they were like the guide I was reading is like, this is a little confusing. I'm like, nope, this is the fucking easiest thing to
It's
understand.
so straightforward.
But
Yeah.
I don't know, it's an odd thing. But then let's just go right into the mission, the assassination mission, the end of disc 1. The groups
Love
are
it.
the groups are split
I
up.
love it.
Irvine and Squall.
Squall is dead.
Irvine and Squall are gonna. Their task was getting to a sniper position. Quistis, Zell, and Selfie their job is to close a series of gates to trap Adia's parade car.
Yep.
And Renault was going to be with Squall and Irvine, but she's like, Dr. Odine made a necklace that will inhibit her power, and I want to just offer her apology and give it to her. She gets trapped. Quistis decides she wants to abandon the mission to go apologize to her. Quistis gets trapped. They have to go through the sewers thing, whatever, but my first favorite part of this sequence, when the parade is happening, all of these fantastic people dancing are doing all of the moves from Michael Jackson's Thriller, which they just copied. Squall and Irvine, they run through the parade doing a Naruto run. They bend down and they put their arms up and they're running through the parade. I'm like, you are the worst sneaking people I've ever seen.
But they're bent over.
Just do a freaking moonwalk. It's the easiest way to get through this.
Dude, I don't know. I was like, are they seriously going through the middle of the parade? Everyone's looking at Naruto running. And they were. They actually were.
They did. I wouldn't count that as Naruto running because you have to run at full speed if you got your hands behind you because it's aerodynamic.
No, it's not.
Shut up.
No, dear.
That's what happens when I jump through trees.
All of this plan, though, kind of starts falling apart. Adia doesn't do what the president expects her to.
She kills him.
She kills him. And there's a moment where I'm like, why are the people all cheering when she's talking about taking control and making them like be her subjects? The Ultimania does explain that they were under her spell.
Yes.
Yep. Because otherwise,
She can do
they're
it.
like, fuck yeah!
Like, yippee!
Make Albadia great again.
And this is how democracy dies.
Yeah.
Through thunderous applause. It's a
Not with a whimper.
Listen, I'm a sexy broad with big
clear
boobs.
Star Wars reference right there.
I'm going to need y'all to take the vaccine. Look at my boobs. It's important.
Inject this.
Check this. That's good. Fuck.
If I had any good jokes, I would have used it.
I got nothing on this one.
My tits are great.
Eventually, though, after some shenanigans, Irvine does get a shot lined up. Irvine doesn't take the shot, and he kind of falls apart. And
It's like, I won't. I can't.
Erectile dysfunction.
well, what's really going on here,
Direct
though?
sniper
Irvine
dysfunction.
never used the GF before meeting the group.
So
And
he knows everybody.
he knows everybody. He also knows that Adia is the matron of the orphanage he grew up in.
Yep.
It's like telling him to shoot his mom, and that's why this crackshot sniper has a moment of weakness. And I think that
And
That's why he
fucked
acts
up
so
on
cool at
so
the
many
beginning.
levels when you realize that later on. Like it's a mind screw.
it is a mind screw.
It's wild.
Also, I didn't like Irvine because he's such a cool ladies' man. I'm like, stay away. Like,
Yeah, I
What,
I
your
might
ratings
have
going
had
to take
the
Carly?
you know, it's like you could have Selfie and Zell, okay?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just get.
Go get.
Yeah, I might have been a little jealous of that guy.
They took
As
my
a kid.
GFs.
I just don't have the hairline.
You gave them to.
I don't.
They considered Irvine for a spin-off game when they wanted to make a shooter.
Really?
They
And
made
the-
Dirge of Cerberus.
And then they made Dirge of Cerberus. Mistake, by the way.
Dylan just slowly backed the chair away and left everybody.
Bye, Dylan.
Quit calling it out. I gotta pee.
Wait 1 second. Wait 1 second. We're almost there. My favorite part of disc 1 in this sequence, Squall jumps off of the balcony, hijacks a car, drives it up. This has major Cloud stealing the
Final Fantasy
motorcycle
VII,
vibes.
yeah.
He drives that thing up right to the thing and just charges in.
Where did he learn how to drive?
It must be part of the training.
Driver.
Just like he knew how to
He
dance.
did drive that dumb
he's 7.
car right outside of Balam all the way to Timber or whatever.
He junctioned Jeff Gordon to himself.
Get her done, motherfucker. Yeah.
At least it wasn't Dale Earnhardt.
Oh God.
Restrictor plates are the problem there. But there's
And death.
Jesus Christ.
Then the boss battle happens. They beat Adia, but they don't beat Adia, and Squall gets pierced with a giant fucking icicle spear, and it looks very bleak. And is everyone dead? And actually, there's a lot of evidence saying otherwise, but we'll be right back.
Not that much.
We did that much for 7 because we also talked about Dirge of Cerberus, Advent Children, Before Crisis.
Let me be clear. If they made a CGI movie for this, I would buy 12 copies for everyone I knew.
And we would do an entire episode about the movie. I would be happy about it.
I would be in on that too.
I actually thought of a sequel a long time ago. Because when Advent Children came out, I was 15, and I was hanging out, and I was like, this is a game ripe for a sequel.
So Squall and Renault have a baby. They name him Dylan.
And he's really cool, and he's better at the gunblade.
He uses
so good at the gunblade,
uses-
and he's a sorcerer.
No, he uses dual sword guns, and he can use fire magic from his tits.
What did I just walk into?
Before we move any further, though,
Let's talk about the most important character in the game.
Laguna. Let's talk about Laguna's. Like, they fall into a dream sequence. They think it's a dream, but they all have the same dream. And I love that at some point, Selphie's dreaming she is Ward, or no, she's dreaming she is Kyros. Mm-hmm. So she's dreaming she's a man, which I've had that same
man, baby.
I've had that same dream.
Dreaming of being a man? Yeah, me too.
Yeah. But
I wish.
I'll get there.
these sequences are actually true events that happened before. Eleni is sending these events to our main characters. Dylan, why is Laguna so cool besides his theme song?
Well, I mean, yeah. Laguna is extremely self-effacing. He is embarrassing to a degree but he's extremely human.
Yeah.
In a way that they don't allow a lot of JRPG characters to be. And in the way that you find him embarrassing, you must also find yourself embarrassing. There's this idea where you have to play to tropes.
Yeah.
And I find him to be the least tropey Final Fantasy character that has ever existed. He's self-confident enough to get through what he needs to do, and he's confident, but he's also a Dorcas. And he's not confident around women.
I don't think Laguna is a Dorcas. I think that for a 17-year-old, seeing someone older that...
He's like 25, I believe.
Laguna seems like a guy with cool friends. He knows what he wants to do. He wants to get into journalism. He does have the courage to go talk to ladies, even if he is a little, paranoid about it.
Well, he's shy.
Laguna seems like the coolest dude. I don't see him as anything less than, pinnacle cool.
Like a dude you could go and have a beer with, and I think he'd be cool.
Like George Bush.
Awkward enough to be relatable. It was it was nice to see a character on the screen that had enough insecurities.
I know my first time playing the game, I felt detracted. I'm like, the story is getting good. I want to know what's happening to our main characters. And I didn't realize, though, that experience and items carried over. So you're not getting you're also carrying over experience, so it doesn't help at least. But it was just very much like,
which is a clue about the time travel.
I'm like, who's this? What's this? Who's this guy? I don't get it. But you learn more about what's happening modern day. We're just going to cover all of Laguna now. Like when they are locked up in a prison, they're able to partially escape because Zell is having Ward dreams, where Ward is a janitor there at that point. You're able to like better explore areas. And you also see like Laguna acting in a film, which becomes part of why Cypher likes a gunblade, and he sees a knight fighting a dragon. He has dreams of being a hero. You don't realize at the time that you're also watching Squall's father. I do like these Laguna sequences quite a bit.
I found myself like, especially at this age, I'm like, oh my god, I'm so in love with like blah blah blah, and I would act just like this motherfucker. Like, not even by choice.
You're swinging in on a rope, just shooting a gun everywhere.
Yeah. Well, the school didn't like it, but
you give some weird knife weapons to your friends to hold beside you.
Yeah.
I related to these characters, and honestly, I think like especially the part where you wake up and you're in Windhill, and you're doing your rounds, and then you have little Eleni, and you have Rain. And you're just like, well, I'm this injured soldier. The army doesn't know if I'm dead or alive. I might as well protect this village.
And Laguna's not admitting that he just wants to stay there and marry Rain at that point.
Because he's in love with her, yeah.
It's
just
great.
Something I would fucking do.
The way it relates back to
I love him.
Convince yourself to pursue an adjacent thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And ultimately, you do see the tale of how Laguna becomes the president of Estar and assumes control and traps Adele, it's cool because that all happens right up to when you go to space, which is great.
Yep.
There's a few other sequences, a prison break sequence that is great for our main characters, but Balam Garden, Sid needed someone to help fund this thing, and he finds the shadiest motherfucker. His name is Norg. And, I guess we can talk about the Shumi while we're here. The Shumi are an odd race. I understand Cactar, I understand Mongs, I understand Moombas to an extent, but the Shumi are a little odd. Like big chins, big noses,
Gigantic hands.
Basically,
Do
Jabba
they
the
swim
Hutt's.
well?
If you're a good Shumi, you evolve into a Moomba. If you're a certain kind of Shumi, you evolve into a village elder. And then there's Norg, who just turns into a giant Jabba the Hutt monster. Because I guess he got possessed by the wrong Sid.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. I like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It came. Norg is such a strange thing because you have to come back because Balam Garden is getting missiles shot at it, and we have to move. We have to do something now.
We have to move the garden. And
Evacuate
Norg's
it.
like, why would I? Less Jabba, more boss nass.
I was gonna say we've made a conversion.
Bantapudu.
Norg is a Shumi benefactor who has funded all of Balam Garden. Now, there's no other Shumi that have any other strong personality traits at all anywhere, and you never see them pretty much outside of the Shumi village except for this one confined room where Norg is. Norg is fascinating. Norg is weird, and what a bizarre little twist to happen when you're just trying to figure shit out. Turns out if you want to find someone to fund you, you might have to give them your soul a
He's
little bit.
basically Krang.
Yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
And another thing that's fascinating is I think Sid, since he kind of knows the loop of causality that's supposed to occur for all the good ending to happen, which makes him kind of like this kind of ethereal kind of outside of everything being.
but
And I think
guide.
Right, exactly. I think he's just like, yeah, okay, Norg,
He's like the
you're
Mr.
so
Miyagi
important.
of Final Fantasy.
No, but he doesn't know. He just knows Squall showed up and said
He knows Norg is there.
But no, Squall shows up, says we need Balam Garden, and that's it. From like when he came back, Sid doesn't know.
I think Sid knows.
Sid doesn't know.
I think Sid is letting things happen in a certain way to make things actually occur.
Sid doesn't know what's the right things to happen, other than Squall is the guy that comes back in time.
I
don't technically agree with
There's
that.
no proof of any of it. There's no sequence. There's no explanation.
But in order for
Yeah,
A plus B equals C to occur, you gotta kind of have the plus.
If I might,
Go ahead.
I do think that Sid generally is a risk taker in all of the Final Fantasies, where he's like, oh, these things are happening. I need to let them happen.
Right.
Well, I'm not saying that.
Minus maybe
I don't-
15 because
I don't
think
think that's fair. He doesn't have like an actual role. It's the
he's
same
just
as
like
Biggs
a
and
grumpy
Wedge,
grandpa,
though. You
and
know,
his hot daughter does everything else. Granddaughter does everything else.
I'm just saying there are other, he could have found other ways to get Balam Garden going without Norg, perhaps. But you defeat Norg. Balam Garden turns out it's a ship, and it becomes a boat.
Why does
Kind of a boat.
Why does Norg have Leviathan in him? That's a big question.
Maybe it's his member.
Yucky. So he's got like a big long duck penis?
Hear me out. Did you ever see the corkscrew shape of Leviathan?
That's true.
Duck wiener. Balam Garden.
Fuck.
And it turns it's great because right when Balam Garden becomes a ship, Gobadi Garden's like, oh, we're a ship too now, bitch.
We're gonna fuck you
And we're
up.
against you.
We're gonna
yeah.
fuck you up. And you go to war. There's a pretty great sequence where you have to invade.
That is the best part of the game. Period.
It's fantastic. The ships run into each other. They're like you're jumping into the other the other garden. You have to like figure out how to get around. My favorite enemy of the game is only in the ice skating rink of Galbadia Garden, and it's kind of like a rare battle. It doesn't happen every time. Where it's a hockey player like demonoid human.
Yep. Yep.
And it's just like, wait, who are you and why are you fighting me? But I guess it's a member of their hockey team, and he got upset and he's trying to fight you when you're there.
so I know you have
like
the
Mr.
actual
Mighty
official
Ducks.
name, but I would like every single one of us to name it unofficially. I would say it's the Slapsticker.
Puck Boy. I'm going with Puck Boy.
Okay.
Goaltender. I don't know.
It is, of
That's
course,
pretty good.
the Slapper.
The Slapper.
Slapper. Okay.
That was
that
close.
makes more sense.
Slap on.
I was there. Yeah, I'll take it.
Yours is better for a final.
Guys, okay, you scan the Slapper. A member of Galbadian Gardens Demi-Human Ice Hockey Club attacks with speed and teamwork.
So
Isn't
that's
that the plot to the Mighty Ducks?
by the way, that's why he loses. It's teamwork first, then it's safety first, then teamwork.
Oh, God.
Always wear shoes in the house.
Sure.
But this is where you also fight Adia in Galbadia Garden, and you defeat her, and her magic powers transfer into Renoa.
And she ends up in a coma for a minute.
You go to Adia's house, and she takes a big, steamy plot dump on everyone.
Let
Best
me
way to put that,
explain.
I've never thought of it that way. The best way to put it ever.
It's Laura Bukak.
Because your characters have realized, like, wait, we were in an orphanage together. You go back to your orphanage. You
Play
promptly
on the basketball court.
No. You promptly challenge Adia to triple triad before you ask her anything.
Oh, really? We're doing this now.
Would you like to know how I became a sorceress? Squall pulls out his deck of cards really slowly. Do you want to play a quick game? And,
Just the tip.
so it turns out all of our heroes, minus Renoa, and Cypher was there as well, all were raised in the same orphanage. And Eleni was raised there as well.
Convenient.
And Quistis is like, I thought that I wanted to fuck you. It turns out I wanted to protect you. And I'm
Yeah.
like, well, maybe you had
She
him
resolves
confused a
her-
little
A
bit.
little bit of both.
I mean, he's
yeah.
a pretty boy. It's fine. But it's also like, it is not
He's
like,
good with that gun blade.
there's such like a, and maybe you can confirm this with me, Nick, like, especially in, especially like Japanese school fiction, there tends to be this idea of like, oh, senpais, you have to respect your elders in these weird ways. And I'm like, she's a year older than you. It's like not that big of a
Yeah.
fucking... Nobody in Western society actually thinks of things this way. Because when I first played the game, I thought she was like 24.
Yeah.
I
like way ahead.
I skipped one important sequence. I call it the opera scene. It's where you're at Fisherman's Horizon, and Selphie really wants to plan a party, and you're going to plan a party, and you get to tell all of your friends what instruments to play, and do you want to play an Irish jig or romantic melody
Or country.
It's only 2 options.
Just a good old boy.
I always did the Irish jig.
I thought it was funner.
Yep.
The Irish jig is the town theme from FF5.
Yep.
And I guess the gang just throws a small festival for Squall's promotion to be the leader. And they really want Renoa and Squall to hook up.
It's very strange how preoccupied they are with that. But I think Renoa's like, hey, listen, I think Squall's pretty cute. Can you like make this happen?
And Quiz is like, I can play a bass guitar.
Everyone can play. Who dances?
You can make anyone play any instrument. I gave like...
I always made Selphie dance.
And I would say also Selphie is the least talented, so she should be the one playing the tambourine, you know? I imagine Quiz is rocking the bass. For some reason, that seems right. I put Zell on the acoustic guitar.
Zell would play the acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
He's
Needs
like
attention.
he's playing Wonderwall.
He's a
at the
singer.
party.
Exactly.
Better drunk.
Oh my God.
Like if you could.
Turns out Eleni is in Esther. We have to go to Esther, which is a city impossible to find because they have magical barriers and technology. Very much feels kind of like Emerald City. There's a good witch and a bad witch, and you have to get over there. You go to Esther, Laguna's president. Turns out these 2 like weird attendants who are helping him out. That's just Warden Kyros. And I was like, what? You guys are in funny outfits. And they're like, we don't know you. I'm like, oh, I'm the player. I know you.
So like Estes right away, maybe this is my theater background, but definitely gave me Wizard of Oz
Esther.
vibes.
Yeah, yeah.
Just like the good witch and the bad witch, and
He's also
the technology that borderlines on magic.
Yeah.
Yep.
Getting around Esther is the most confusing shit the first time you get
Yeah,
there.
let's get on a shuttle and go like 3 stops to this, and then 1 stop to this,
Okay.
and fuck. Yeah.
Actually, I'm going to go ahead and go way back to Delling City because that is the fucking most confusing city in the world. Where the
It's
assassination
fucking weird.
happens, it took me forever to figure out how to get to the mansion.
Yep.
It was training for
I blame
Esther,
part of
perhaps.
that on just the game system, just the mapping. Like I feel like they just mapped that poorly.
And there's like buses that just like fucking fly through everywhere.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, Esther was super confusing as well.
Can I just say, Laguna 2024. I want him to listen. He did a really good job in Esther.
Ultimacy is like, we're going to do time compression. We're building walls. He's like, will you shut up, lady?
Lady, I'm interested. He's interested in
MAGA.
infrastructure.
He's just trying to fix the problems that we have.
Sure, he abandoned his son.
He didn't.
Hey, nobody's perfect.
I don't. Did he know he had a son
Nobody's
coming?
perfect.
I don't think he knew he had a son coming when he left.
This is where things get a little dicey in terms of the timeline.
This is when Squall has really made the decision. Renoa is my waifu, and I am going to take care of her. They have to take her to space.
If you're going to be the sorceress, then I'm going to be your
Spice?
knight.
Space!
They have to take her to
Time to
space.
go to spice.
For some reason, going to space is going to be the thing that cures her.
Getting closer to the moon, that's like a witch thing.
Laguna trapped Adele. This is how Laguna became president. You should go over there. And she goes over there, and he's like, trapped you, bitch. And he sends her to outer space. That's essentially what happens.
That's fucking awesome and also a good trick.
Yep.
That's what I do to all my enemies.
The reason that they also have all the broadcast things turned off, they're trying to limit any interference with Adele's trapping mechanism up there.
Yep.
And so you have to go up to outer space. You go up there with Renoa and I think it's another party member. You can choose another one, but you get up there and the scientists are like, as long as we don't bring another sorceress up here, we're fine. Nothing bad can happen up here.
Wah wah wah.
And then Squall's like, do you want to play Triple Triad with me right now? And I will say,
I could really use a card game.
outer
And
space.
if you really wanted to play, could you just fucking play a game with me so I calm down a little?
And I will say they have the worst rules in outer space. It is the worst rules in the card game. But they have the best cards there.
You're telling me I can't use this card? I just really want to play the card. Can you let me play the card?
Once Squall quit crying, turns out Renoa went missing. All right. I also skipped the 20-minute homage to Space Odyssey on the way up because this is a Stanley Kubrick film for the next hour and a half. Turns out Renoa's put on a spacesuit and she's flying out to Adele. Mm-hmm. Big fan of her music.
She loves her.
Squall has to put on the spacesuit and go out to save her, and they're like, "There's no way you can save her." He's like, "Doesn't matter, love her." I'm like, I was dumb too once. I get it.
No, I thought you said I was Dylan too. That seems like a Dylan thing to do. I'm like, fuck it, I want to suffocate in space, and then I would jump out.
Well, what's that George Clooney movie where they do
No,
basically
but
the
that's
same
your
exact
choice.
thing?
Gravity.
Yeah. Totally Gravity.
That's a Sandra Bullock movie. Come on.
I was gonna say Sandra Bullock and Hathaway.
It's okay. Let's keep going.
Okay.
Agreed. Okay. You have the most romantic scene where you've gotten onto Ragnarok and then she's sitting on your lap and you guys are talking about how you want to be together and you're snuggling. And Squall says the famous line, "I'm not your mother."
True. It's pretty fucking sick.
Because they just keep like, I wonder what our parents are thinking about
I
it,
mean,
what they do. And he's like, I'm not. Just like, no, because they're talking about being family for each other. And then Squall goes, "I'm not your mother" to Renoa. Yeah. And I mean, I've used that line many times in bed.
That is a
I think that's a weird. I think
hard lines
first
right
of all,
there.
first of all, that's a weird translation.
Yeah, it's
because
definitely a
they have
weird
so many words
translation.
they have so many words for mother within the Japanese language.
Mama.
And unfortunately, the one-to-one to that is probably going to be "I'm not your mother," but it doesn't translate that way.
But it should have been, "I'm not your ultimate protector, but I tried anyway." Like that's the sentiment you're getting out of this situation. And I think for her character growth is literally just like, well, I can't like glom onto people and make them do things for me. She's trying to be she's trying to be so independent throughout this entire thing that at that point she's just like, oh, actually, I just have to be my own person.
This
Be okay with support.
Right.
And he's risked his life for her, and they're together. So the moment they land and they're like, "We have to take her," he's like, "Yeah, take her. I don't care." It's fucking stupid.
It's jarring.
It's incredibly stupid.
I love you. Oh, fuck off. Bye.
The moment they land, they're like, "She's a sorceress. We got to take her." And Squall's like, "Okay, I don't care." And then literally all of his friends are like, "Are you stupid?
It's like, what the hell is your problem, dude?
You went to outer space and you like risked your life to save her." And he's like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I should have. Okay, let's get her."
Very Kelso moment.
Can you not understand?
Exactly, yes.
Can you not understand that this is first of all, it's a 17-year-old boy, and within strict guidelines of this universe, and he has to deal with the
Love
fact
versus duty.
But it's love versus duty.
It's called poo-poo in this game.
But he was the duty was forced.
The poo-poo was forced on him. Give me elixirs, daddy.
The leadership was forced upon him in a way that no other 17-year-old could handle. And for him, I think he saw a brief respite, or maybe he couldn't even quantify everything that was going on in
I think
his
he
life.
goes through a full breakdown in the game.
He does.
Yeah.
He totally goes through a full rejection to the call to action.
He's also just like, he's like, fuck everything at some point.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
literally, he just says that he doesn't care about other people. He outright says
If
it.
you're going to be the
I lack
sorceress, I'll be your
empathy.
knight.
Like,
Yeah. Yep.
Like, fuck everything else. You're it. That's it.
Yeah. The one thing he can quantify.
Set fire to the rain. Squall saves Renoa. We're going to save the side quest possibly for a Doggies After Dark. I don't know if we'll have time. But we're going to talk about the end of the game.
Perfect.
Ultimacia has used the Eleni machine from the future to travel back in time to take control of Renoa and Adele at different points, and then able to start the time compression, which is a part of a plan that we all agreed was going to happen. And then the time compression happens.
You're not understanding the causality loop, first of all. It's okay. I cannot explain it well.
So explain it poorly.
Adia informs them. No, I don't got it. I see it's stupid.
Keep going.
Okay.
It's going to do it better than I will. But then I can actually explain it from
Adele, Ultimacia,
No, for sure.
Adele,
I'm in on
Ultimacia are one thing. She has got back and she's joined with Adele in the modern time.
Right.
She junctions with Renoa, grafting her to their body.
So she's the ultimate version of a sorceress.
At this
End
point,
of disc 3, by
sorcerer.
the way, for anyone who's keeping track.
Adele is defeated.
She's the Holy Trinity. of
Adele is
sorcerers.
defeated. She junctions with Renoa. Then Laguna arrives, and they send Renoa Ultimacia back in time. The latter one back then cast the time compression spell, and the party witnessed the space-time continuum being torn apart. This is when the group must fight multiple sorceresses from various times. We don't know who they are. They're all pretty cool looking. And then you are beyond time and space, and you have to climb a giant chain to get to Ultimacia's castle. One of the absolute highlights of, I would say, any Final Fantasy game I have played.
The
What a
castle's
great
good.
final dungeon experience for a game.
Yes.
Why is it so great?
They take away all your abilities.
Okay.
Does anyone want to elaborate before I go into it?
Go for it, Ben.
Go for it. I'll add in.
Okay.
You are forced to bit by bit regain your abilities, and this could end up being
And it's a
portions
cool
of
kind of
magic.
deformed castle that you're working your way through.
Yeah.
So it's a mission within a mission. It's a nice way to lay it out.
And all of your abilities are gone. Every boss you defeat in the castle, you can unlock one more ability. You don't need them all.
Choose it.
You don't need them all. You can just defeat 2 bosses, 7 bosses, no bosses.
So I saw a ton of inspiration taken during this period from that's Kefka, right? Taking the idea of, okay, you're now in the end game. You need to reobtain all of the awesome things that you've done through your adventure.
The World of Ruin.
I think that was such a cool thing to play off of, and I think they took inspiration from it. I don't know.
They had, obviously,
But-
they did.
I love that the castle
that
can
makes
be
sense.
explored and fought in multiple ways.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can go to certain bosses first if you want, and if what's most important to you is unlocking items or magic or GFs,
Well, that
You-
choice.
it's so cool.
Yep.
If anything, it's a little cheap in that you can just exit the castle, use a save point, and go back in. Because your save points are taken away inside the castle, but you can just go out and.
It's a bit of a cheat, but
It's
they
a bit of a
didn't
cheat.
expect people to do that.
But
But if you didn't level up very well beforehand, you
Or
always
if you
need
didn't
it.
have enough magic, essentially, yeah.
When I first played it was the reason I got stuck so hard at the end of disc 3 was because I didn't know to develop all of that stuff beforehand. And then when I went back and played it the second time, I was like, oh God, there's all this other stuff I really need to be building up at this point.
That makes sense.
And that completely changed the game. So, if you're somebody that's playing through on the first time and you get to that point and it's like, oh, okay, God. That save point might be the only reason you can finish the game without having to go from disc 4 to disc 1 and redoing it.
you have Sphinxar, Tripoint, Krista, Trauma, Red Giant, Gargantua, Ketablipas, Tiamat, and then, of course,
Good old Omega Weapon.
Omega Weapon, the most difficult boss in the game. I've heard there's an easy way to cheese it where you just get Renoa into her limit break sorceress lady form, and she will just go to town on this motherfucker.
Ultima, dead.
Yep.
You climb a clock tower, though, after all these shenanigans, and the hand is on the 8 as you climb down it and go up a ladder. I wonder if it's because of FF8. You go up, and then you're given the straight up, do you want to go in here and finish the game or not? And I said no, and I went back I did the card mod to every good card of mine, got all the best items, everything I could.
Makes
just
sense.
sacrifice it all because you're going in, you're not saving after this, and you go in to fight Ultimacia, and you fight the sorceress doing the time compression. Matthew McConaughey, flat circle.
No, come on. That's not a rust. This is not a rust. This is not a rust. This is not a Rust Cole scenario.
That villain was better written.
Fucking
Dylan. Dylan.
well,
My boy,
oh
my boy,
dear.
my boy, the D-Man, the Quinine Cowboy. I'm summoning you. I'm junctioning myself to you right now.
junction this bitch.
Dylan, I am junctioning myself to you.
You guys
Explain why Ultimacia would want to use time compression.
Well, time compression is her like taking everything in existence and putting it all into a single point. She's trying to create a singularity
For what?
for the purpose of controlling all of it at the same time. What part of this is not like explicit? Her prime motivation is control because throughout.
Did Daddy not hug her?
No, that is essentially what it is. But I'll explain it a little bit further. Her motivation is the fact that throughout all of history, these sorceresses have been either feared, hated, or loved. And the love part of that
revered,
doesn't...
not loved.
Yes. And that happens to be...
I love some of them.
Well, that happens to be what most of them aren't. I mean, I was reading the book, and it brought up something very interesting, especially to Western audiences. It brings up the Salem witch trials to Western audiences, and how like women of power are often considered very like sinister or evil, or they've got something going on underneath. Whereas in Japanese culture, that's not quite a thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, think about the mamas that were in charge of brothels in
Exactly.
Japan.
So I think that her entire, like Ultimacia, her entire being is built upon this aspect that since she has this power of premonition, she understands that Squall and the party is coming for her. And her entire motivation is maybe this time I can make my shit work and not their shit, because she probably has experienced that final boss battle 1,000,000 times. She understands the causality loop too, because if you have this kind of omnipresent view of time itself, you have to then understand that she already knows her own demise, and that every single time you face that final boss, you are kind of in this metatextual fight for time itself.
I think what I really like about Ultimacia is her intentions are ambiguous to Squall and to the party. And
They don't explain her well.
the concept of time as the villain is it's very strong, I think, as well, because Squall is terrified of losing people, of being viewed in the past tense, and that is more
Once
of
he
an enemy.
finally starts connecting to people, yeah.
And once he accepts that he wants to care for people and love people, the concept of time passing, time is more of the enemy, and him needing to protect his friends is more of his goal. What Ultimacia ultimately wants is less important than what Squall needs to do. And I think that is a really strong aspect of the game, because Squall has assumed the leader role. He's accepted his love for Renoa and his friends, and he will do anything for him. And his hero's journey is more important than Ultimacia's purpose. It doesn't matter what she wants, but it's because it is a little loosely defined, and it's still important. But
And that's
what's
only
more
because
important is
it's-
Squall has come to his end.
That's
Well-
only because it's literature too, though. You know, like the only reason why you can dismiss Ultimacia's purpose is because you know that Squall is the protagonist.
So even based on like the creation mythology that they establish, what you have is a legacy of passing the ball. You have a legacy of like, oh, there's this immense power, only some people can contain it, and it's kind of this inherited almost queenship in this
very Final
specific
Fantasy 15.
in this specific scenario. And I feel like a lot of what this game is about is past trauma. It's literally trying to figure out how to deal with your past as you move into the future. And
Time compression.
And reconciling
time compression. Every single character is burdened by it. You see Squall, who keeps thinking about his older sister, who he was glommed onto as a child. You've got Renoa, whose mother dies, who is a free spirit, and her father's kind of a dickhead. And then you've got like Safer, who probably didn't have anyone either, but was so interested in the fictional universes that he found that he was just, he couldn't do anything else with it.
He would do anything to become a knight, and he did.
And he did.
Yep.
He wanted to fight the dragon.
You fight Ultimacia, and she summons Squall's inner demon, the ultimate strongest thing, which I forgot that I named the Griever Raw Dogs. I forgot. I was fighting Raw Dogs. I'm like, this is my inner demon, the Raw Dogs.
Yeah, baby.
And it was amazing.
Do you know what that song is called? It's called Maybe I'm a Lion.
One time I had a really wet fart, and I said there wasn't any poop in there, and I said, maybe I'm a lion.
Sometimes, Brad. Ultimacia essentially becomes, especially in the final stage, she loses her face. And do you remember when Squall dies, quote unquote, in the parade? He loses his face. Like there is a warp into his face.
Yeah.
This
Doesn't
is part of the loop.
Show up too with something weird.
Yeah. Well,
so
the loss of the face within when Ultimacia shows up, like it's literally just like an empty face with like a weird light in the center.
Yeah.
Like a candle inside.
I'm not sure what that fucking
Like a
symbolizes.
black
Like,
hole looking.
but
It's
a
like loss of self.
at the center, like she ends up becoming less than human because she wanted to embrace this kind of
She loses
force
her
around her.
individuality.
Okay, yeah, I'll agree with that.
Let's bring it home. Final sequence, terrifying stuff. Most of our heroes are able to go right back to where they came from, but Squall gets lost. It almost reminds me of Death Stranding a little bit, where he gets lost on a field instead of a beach. But Renoa and him have agreed to meet back at a garden outside of Adia's house. Squall not having his face, that image is...
It's haunting.
Stark.
It's horror. It's pure horror is what it is.
It removes you from the narrative. It's that difficult to look at.
Mm-hmm.
It really is like a disturbing image because it is unnatural in a way that can't exist in the real world.
Mm-hmm. That's time compression though. I feel like that is a symptom of it. Because now here's we're about to get into Dylan's theories. I think that Squall was saved through time compression. Because if Adea or if Ultimacia has this same kind of warp to her face, and that if Squall was literally, you saw the size of that icicle spear.
Mm-hmm. So
we're going into the theory that Squall is dead.
No,
Okay.
I don't think he was dead. I think he was saved at the last moment. I think that Renoa actually saved him from death through time compression because she was technically the successor to the sorceress that is Ultimacia.
I like that. Her power could bring him back to where he belongs. They are both dwelling on one location, and they were told Focus on a certain point.
Like she reaches out and she makes it happen. She is a sorceress.
She grabbed him by the lower half of his hamburger. At the same time.
Reflexively,
I see him more as a hot dog guy.
Reflexively, she lashes out
she goes,
against something that she dislikes in the world.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong.
It.
When she cries out, that's when the face starts doing that.
Squall is saved. We cut to a camera that is taking a video of everybody at Balam Garden. Adia and Sid clearly have been boning, and she's not an evil sorceress.
Yeah.
Well, they were boning beforehand.
Sid's into anything. He'll fuck anything. Irvine,
God, he's so cute.
and as well,
He's into raw dogging, if we're honest.
yeah, he's a member of the Raw Dog. Sid, if you ever want to be on the podcast, you're welcome. Sid Kramer, we love you.
Fucking love you.
Irvine is still desperately trying to get with Selfie, who wears his cowboy hat, and Quistis is there. It's very cute. Zell
He'll
They
get there.
low-key bone. I mean, it's got to happen.
Zell is eating hot dogs.
But like very
and,
quietly.
He chokes and almost dies.
Selfie denies it all the time.
For some reason, Cypher can just be like hanging out, and it's okay. Fine, whatever. Cypher's a good boy again. Renoa's out there looking at the stars. And where's Squall? Turns out he was holding the camera, and he's a silly, fun guy now, and he loves his friends, and he's alive. Squall smiles, and then Eyes on Me happens, and the end of the game.
It's the final theme is called Overture. I owned every single disc of this on soundtrack, so I know all the tracks.
I'm going to read the first. We have 4 fan responses. We're each going to read one.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to read from Kip. Our family cat was named Moomba. My sister and I got to name him, and he lived to be like 20 years old or something. That's all that Kip wrote. And
we love you, Kip.
We appreciate it, Kip.
We love you, buddy. We do.
So Kayla Berkshire says, or Berkshire, says, the waltz scene. Gosh, middle school me wishes I were as cool as Squall. And the ending FMV was mind-blowing at the time. And of course, the Space Rescue, right before you board Ragnarok. Mm-hmm. What an amazing game with angsty team characters that I could identify with as a 13-year-old. I felt misunderstood and alone the way Squall did. Their romances and tribulations seemed so pertinent. Fucking men, Caleb.
Right. I got Final Fantasy VIII for Christmas in 99. It was from Sam's and was packaged with the Brady Games Guide. I distinctly remember my brother and me sitting in front of the TV on New Year's Eve playing it and hoping that the Y2K bug wouldn't mess with our save file. I love it. Yes, I love it. I was probably too immature or young to really get the storyline at the time. Me too. You were age 11, but I really enjoyed it. Triple Triad was legit, I agree. To my great shame, I will admit that I used a Game Shark to get all the GF cards so I could convert them into items so I could beat the final boss.
Sounds
no
like
shame.
That's what Sony did too for translating.
Enjoy your games. As somebody who has cheated through a handful of games, enjoy your games. Just have fun. That's the purpose of them.
Amen, sir.
All right, we've got Stoy from the EXP cast. I loved the realistic graphics at the time, he says, and I connected with Squall more so than any other Final Fantasy character before. The supporting cast was diverse too. This is
So true.
they're actual written characters.
Yeah.
They're like real people.
No,
I agree. The twist near the end, in that every character in your party were once connected as kids, which made the connection to each other that much more meaningful. Except Safer. He was a dick through and through. Also, all the times going back to play as Laguna and his team were interesting. Annoying at first, but he kind of grew on you the more you played. I would argue he was my favorite character from the beginning. And I don't like Safer. I really don't like that guy. Also, Tom says it was a piece of shit.
And then I
I
have
have to
Tom has
respectfully
a
disagree
poopy
with you,
butt
sir.
face.
Tom played through the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and I'm going to be honest with you, that game is not as good as Final Fantasy VIII, and the next game's going to be awful. Mark my words.
We have audio sent in from the Nerd Lair. My buddy, a famous YouTube gentleman, he sent in this audio about Final Fantasy VIII.
For me personally, I think the reason why I love Final Fantasy VIII so much more than other Final Fantasies is because of the sci-fi elements within this game. And unlike a lot of the Final Fantasy games that came before it, this game was a slow burn. I was also the perfect age of 13 when this game was released for the edgy, kind of arrogant sort of character that Squall was. I thought he was so cool. This game came out 21, 22 years ago, something like that, and still to this day, the thing that I remember the most was the music. I don't know if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but at the time that this game came out, I would have to say that its music was probably the best Final Fantasy music has ever been. Specifically the song Balam Gardens. Every time I hear that song, it triggers the most nostalgic memories from my childhood, and I just get brought back to my room on a fall evening with the rain pouring down, playing Final Fantasy VIII. All in all, Final Fantasy VIII was definitely the black sheep when it came out, and that's why I liked it. Because it was different. Oh yeah, and because of Triple Triad.
Yep. All right.
That's fair.
Let's bring it home here, gentlemen.
Absolutely.
Everybody, you'll each get like 1 minute to say why you like Final Fantasy VIII or don't. Start with you, Nick.
I hated Final Fantasy VIII the first time that I played it. I was too young and I didn't understand the systems, and it really, really sucked the first time. Revisiting the game made me appreciate the themes of the narrative a whole lot more. And also, my gamer brain now loves the fact that I can abuse and use the system. So I dig the game a whole lot more. I actually am probably going to be playing through it completely now that I started playing it for the podcast.
How about you, Ben?
Being the first Final Fantasy game I've ever played, this will always have just that special place in my heart. It just, as a angsty musician kid at the age of like 14 or 15 when I first played this thing, like I completely identify. The only difference between me and Squall was the fact he had a fucking gun sword and I did not have that. That was pretty much the only difference. Like, I had a backyard, I had guns, I had target practice. Like, I had everything but the sword part of this.
And you were killing T-Rexes in your school's like gymnasium.
I mean, in my mind, yes.
Okay, cool.
But I mean, it was just like when I sat and, I mean, like I said earlier, when I sat and played this for the first time, I was like, I don't know if I get it. And then like 8 or 10 hours later, I looked up and like, okay, maybe I do get it. And then I just plowed through. It just, I've loved other Final Fantasy games since, but this is just one that, you know, I guess you don't forget your first.
Myself, having had thoughts about this game before finishing it until recently, I finally, having gone through start to finish the entire story, I appreciate what's the characters' journeys are so much more. It's easy to try and just put something into a little box and put it away and say, oh, Squall is this character, or Cloud is that character. Or it's easy to try and be dismissive, and you shouldn't, because there is a beautiful world and a big, crazy sci-fi story that's going on here. I love the fact that Square Enix, Squaresoft at the time, they take chances. Always take chances. Make weird battle systems. Make big decisions that are controversial, because that's what keeps it exciting and that's what keeps things changing. If you make the same game twice, it's gonna not be great. And that's why
Assassin's Creed.
That's why I like Final Fantasy X too. I admire, even if I don't think it's not my cup of tea, but goddamn, they made an interesting cup of tea that
A lot of people like.
You should try it at least once. And FF8,
I respect what 10-2 did. I just can't get into it, but I respect what they did.
FF8 is a beautiful love story. It's a great story of character growth and internalization and trauma. And I do very much appreciate Squall as a character so much more because this is his story. And I recommend this, even though if it's not essentially like the easiest game to play anymore, because it is not the prettiest game with the way it is aged, but I think it is an important entry in the Final Fantasy franchise. And the reason it's going to always be polarizing is because people fucking love it or fucking hate it no matter what.
Yeah.
And it will always be polarizing. It's never going to be like ranked as bad or great because it does things different. And it is 100% one of the most different Final Fantasy games. I will say that.
I will argue always that anything as polarizing as this is the thing that makes art great. Be outlandish, do something different. It makes a much more entertaining something for someone.
Mm-hmm.
I'll have one final thing to say on this, and it's extremely simple. And I want people to reflect on this the next time they play the game. Let's take the name Final Fantasy out of this game. If you just played this and you didn't understand what kind of RPG this was, I think this game would be one of the highest regarded RPGs of all time. If you took the name Final Fantasy out of this and you weren't following up to one of the best-selling games of all time.
I do think it being the middle child in between 7 and 9
Right.
hamstringed its appreciation.
It's the Malcolm in the middle.
Well, it's not even between. It's not important that it's between 7 and 9. It's important that it's after 7.
Yes.
When the first RPG that made a big impact in North America and literally everyone played, then you have the next game. And Square just kept doing what they did. We fuck here, we fuck there, we make some new stuff, and we don't stay stagnant.
Well, therein lies the problem.
Yes.
That the problem is that it's burdened by its own legacy, and it's also burdened by expectation.
Yeah.
Because of that, this didn't deserve a lot of what people were putting on it.
It had a magnifying glass over it before it started.
Because
you remember that demo?
The bulk of the, at least the U.S. population didn't see or didn't have the affectation of 1 through 6. They had 7 as the benchmark, and they expected everything to be like that but improved, whereas, Square, like you said, changes it up.
And, a large number of those people hadn't played RPGs. They didn't realize RPGs were different between different RPGs. FF8, we love you. We adore you.
Yeah.
I've got a fucking tattoo of it, and I don't regret it a fucking moment, man. I literally put this game on my body. I fucking love you, Squall. Marry me.
Also, Hiroyuki Ito, you're like low-key my favorite person in the FF franchise.
Honestly.
Just make weirder.
Make more games.
Yes.
Wait, no. Whatever you need to do to make the weirdest shit you can.
Just be weirder.
The weirdest thing you can imagine, Mr. Hiroyuki Ito-san, however I say it. Fucking do it. Okay. But if you want to hear more from the Raw Dogs, we're always here. If you want to support us, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram. We're Hair the Dogcast. We are on Twitter at Hot Dogcast. If you have any hot takes or differing opinions on this video game or anything else we've talked about, please reach out to us.
If first of all, if you're listening to this based off of our Patreon subscribers, then you already know that you're getting this based off of your contribution. And now, if this is released in the future, and
this will be released in the future. I was mostly talking to other people.
So what I'm going to say is, you can get this earlier, and you can also get something called Doggies After Dark, which is probably us becoming
even more fun.
It's either the best thing or the worst thing. It's us drinking
Depends
more.
on how much you like
There's
us.
a lot more beer cans on this table.
Yes, and
Topo Chico.
Actually, if you want to support us, you can go to Patreon. For even the $3 tier, you'll get Part 2 and Doggies After Dark. And for this Doggies After Dark, if we are going to go forward, we don't know yet, but if we are, there will be a brief discussion of some of the side quests. Because I have to talk about Obel Lake with someone, and Chocobo Forest and whatever else, Cactuar Island. Those are fun too. But I have to talk about
Deep
Obel
Sea
Lake.
Research Laboratory.
That's
Holy
a good
hell.
one. But the Obel Lake is the stupidest and best side quest ever written, and I have to talk to someone. So that might be there. Otherwise, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. We've been Raw Dogs. This has been Final Fantasy VIII, and if you haven't played it, go play it. It's on Game Pass right now, and it's Squall's birthday today when we recorded. When this is released, it might be Cypher's birthday. You can even celebrate him if you want. That's fine. We'll see you next time.
I'll fucking kiss you on the mouth.
Do MMA and have face tattoos? Yeah, you're my best friend.